Hey everyone, it's Jonathan and welcome back to Wonderland Wednesday. Today I'm joined by Jenna and Sarah and we're starting a three-part mini-series on some early 1950s specials used to promote Walt Disney's Alice in Wonderland. Today we're starting with the shortest one, Operation Wonderland, which at only 10 minutes I figured we'd breeze right through. However, I should have known better because not only is Jenna an expert on Alice in Wonderland, she's also a big Disney history buff, and this special led to so many random Disney and Alice discussions that I should have seen coming, but didn't. So we started with a 10-minute short and ended up with a half-hour podcast.
So I don't really know what this is for. It feels like it's kind of like for television, but also it feels like maybe not.
It felt to me like a short version of The Reluctant Dragon, except less cheesy and less annoying.
Yeah,
They make it look like it's such a fun, magical place to work, and maybe it was to an extent, but like that seemed like a veneer.
well, I mean
Like, like, like,
that's kind of everything Walt did for TV promotion was very fake. Um,
I'm
like
sure
for
there.
instance, he shows his little train going everywhere, and that clearly wasn't, the way it actually was set up.
I wondered about that because I was thinking he had it just kind of going around outside, but it looked like it went through the whole studio.
Yeah, and well, I mean, it goes on like studio streets and stuff, and obviously they need to drive on those streets. So he did not actually, as far as I know, he only had the train set up at his home. I guess sometimes he also had it at the studio, but it was more like promotion than it actually was a way to get around.
Hmm.
Walt was a storyteller. He liked to portray himself as eccentric because the eccentric uncle who tells you stories, shows you cool stuff.
But if you like to portray yourself as eccentric, aren't you actually eccentric?
Nah, I mean, fair point.
People who aren't eccentric, I don't know how much they actually want to be perceived that way. I don't know. Some, I suppose, some do. Some do. I shouldn't.
Yeah, he did like exaggerate, I guess, like you could say that. Like, for instance, using the train to get everywhere in this short, or my favorite example of him doing something really weird is so at Disneyland there's like a petrified tree stump that's like thousands of years old.
Yeah.
And when they added this to Disneyland, he said that he originally gave it to Lily, his wife, and she decided to give it to Disneyland, the implication that she didn't want a tree stump. So she gave, you know, like kind of a funny story, like, I got you a tree stump. She's like, um, I will give it to Disneyland. How about that? You
If
know,
any, if anybody
how,
wants to,
yeah.
could I just say to the viewers, if anybody wants to give me an ancient petrified tree stump that is within the legal parameters, I will accept it.
You actually you can because the place he bought it from still exists. But
Oh,
but that's actually the interesting thing was this story was debunked when it came out, like the receipts and the people he bought it from. So when Walt went there, I forgot what it's called, but it's like a petrified forest, and they sell tree stumps and artifacts you could buy. And he was looking for a big one, and he said it was for Disneyland from the very beginning.
hmm.
Um, and Lily wasn't involved with the process at all. It was she just agreed to have it be part of the story. So it's just kind of you like to quote unquote storytell, and I feel like this is one of those instances where he's like, I'm eccentric, and I want people to think I'm even more eccentric, so I'm going to make it like I have this miniature train going throughout the studio very impractically. Um, so I no, I he didn't actually do this.
Well,
I mean,
oh,
yeah, he would
the,
set
mo-
it up, but not all the time.
the more magical and fun you can make it look, aren't you going to sell a product better? And don't you want to sell the product after? Yeah, especially
Yeah,
after you beat
exactly.
down that foreign version. I don't.
Well, not yet. This would have been right before beating it down.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, you gotta market yourself. Look how magical we
Yeah,
are.
by my
But
magic, not somebody else's magic. And I could see, like, part of me does feel empathetic towards him over that,
yeah, I
but
mean, it's a complicated situation, but yeah, I don't think you need to do anything, to be honest. I think if he had just let it run, no, I think everybody would have chosen to see Disney anyway.
Yeah. I mean, if I was there, I would have seen both because that would have been interesting because I like seeing different versions of things, but everyone is not
Yeah.
me. They'll usually pick one or the other.
Yeah, I think most people would have gone with the Disney version, especially for children if they have children with them.
Hmm.
Mm.
Name recognition, the animation. Yeah.
Yeah, because the Bunyan Alice, I think, could be a little scary for kids. Um, but anyway,
Well,
um,
we haven't gotten into
yeah,
the building yet.
yeah, yeah. So let's ride the train into the building.
Well, I was going to ask you if you knew anything about the narrator, James Melton.
I actually do not. Do you
'Cause
know anything?
I looked him up. He was a singer, and I thought it was interesting that he narrates as if he's writing a letter to someone named Margot.
Yeah, I was interested in that too, but I wasn't really sure what the behind the scenes is.
Well, on Wikipedia, it didn't have a wife listed at all, but on IMDb, it looked like maybe he was married to someone named Marjorie Barclay McClure.
Oh,
So I was wondering if maybe Margot was a nickname for this Marjorie. I don't know.
maybe.
That aside, Margot's kind of a cool name, isn't
Probably, yeah.
it?
I'm realizing that there's not a lot I know about this short. And it's kind of like why would I though? Because it's just this little thing. I'm
Hmm.
not sure. Oh, okay. You know what? Actually, I just looked it up on IMDb and someone actually gives us the context in a review.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
it's a promotional film. It was intended for television, which makes sense. And it was first broadcast on the Ford Star Review in June of 1951. In it, James Milton narrates explaining to his daughter how Walt Disney gave him the tour of the Disney production facilities,
Oh, okay.
including the talent involved in making the feature film. So that makes a bit more sense. I'm not sure why Disney chose to obscure the fact that it was Ford Star Review. Maybe they couldn't get permission to use Ford's name, maybe to because this was released as part of their DVD set.
Hmm.
That would be my guess, maybe. Or why not avoid having to ask another company for permission when you could just do it without them?
Was there a hope? This is speculation. Was there a hope that this bit could be used on more than one program? I don't know.
Maybe that's also possible. Because I feel like the narrator doesn't add anything at all. Could probably take him out and put someone else in.
Yeah, not really, because the person talking, like there's somebody on screen, but they never talk on screen, I don't think.
They
Yeah,
never show his face.
yeah,
Did they not ever show
I
his
don't think
face?
so. They did at least show the back of his leg at one point and like part
uh,
of his side. I don't know.
I thought you saw somebody riding with Walt Disney at one point, and I just assumed that that was supposed to be the narrator, but I don't know that for sure. I was
Maybe.
just guessing.
maybe. I don't know. Like the only thing that even really gives it away as something else is that that the narrator says Margot. I think otherwise you just assume it's promotional short. Like,
Hmm. And I didn't even realize that the narrator was talking to someone right away. I was like halfway through, and I noticed he said Margot. I was like, huh? And then he said it again later.
yeah,
And I was like, who's this Margot?
It would be well known to the people of the time.
Maybe
well, at
because
least people
this
watching the
was,
program.
yeah, it could be because this was a singer. Like it was somebody who was big in, I guess, the pop music scene in the 20s and 30s. So maybe they would have known who this was a lot more than we today know who he is.
I think also at the time, people were more loyal watchers or listeners of like radios and TV shows.
Hmm.
So, if you're watching the Ford Star Review, you probably had already been watching it weeks prior, and maybe you knew the singer and that he had a daughter.
That's possible, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like like soap opera. You know, soap operas essentially were kind of the same thing where you had a company sponsoring a show.
Hmm.
People are still very loyal listeners to soap opera or watchers of soap operas. I never got into it.
Do you know anyone who is? Do they admit
No, but
it?
they exist apparently.
I mean, they're still making them, so somebody has to be watching them
Somebody's
because if
watching
nobody was
them.
watching them, they'd stop making them.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
I don't think I've ever known anyone who has been into soap operas.
I think, yeah, I feel like it's probably a situation where these people who watch them just won't admit that they watch them.
I think that my mother might have been.
Hmm.
I saw snippets, but you go okay, side note. When my mother worked at the nursing home in break room with the elderly people discussing whatever that I won't mention anyway, on the TV was this soap opera, and there was this lovely woman on there named Shayna, and that's how my sister got named Shayna. She was named after a soap opera character. So anyway, total rabbit trail. Total and it suits her. Like, yeah. Anyway, total rabbit trail. Nobody knows what this is gonna know what this short is about yet. Why we might wanna
Oh yeah, might want to continue.
They were in the studio doing studio stuff. That's basically what this is. A lot with a little train thrown in.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like Jonathan said earlier, it's like the Reluctant Dragon, but shorter and catered to Alice.
It's educational because you're seeing how they do some of the animation work,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
it's a little preview of the Walrus and the Carpenter and Tweedledee and Tweedledum and
The
the tea
Garden of
parties.
Flowers.
Oh yeah, and the tea party scene. So yeah, really, if you're wanting to pull people in, one thing. Am I jumping too far ahead if I talk about the end?
No.
So it's like when they're
Uh,
talking I feel like for the people who hate spoilers, them showing the end
I
where
thought I even wrote that in my notes.
yes, like with them showing her chasing after Alice and her like nearly waking up, like that's against the rules. And
I wrote like they must not have cared too much about spoilers.
they were just like everyone knows the story.
I'm not
Yeah.
rabid about spoilers the way some people are. You know, I'm more okay with knowing things than probably a lot of people. I don't know, but with that, that was no.
It was too much of the end.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
I've noticed that problem with like movie advertising in general with like trailers. I will
I've
sometimes I avoid watching trailers for movies I actually want to watch because I feel like they give away way too much.
I have been lately too. What was it?
Yeah.
Sing 2. Because I like the Illumination, like they're fine. But like the Sing
Mhm.
movie, I really liked the first one. So I was excited that they were making a second one. So I looked it up. I felt like I watched the entire movie in 2 minutes. I was so annoyed. And after that, I've kind of stayed away from a lot of trailers because I've noticed it with more, like that was the most egregious one, but I've noticed it with a lot more trailers recently. It's like they give way too much away. So I usually avoid them.
I feel like that's always been a problem though, like just in general, is they want to bring you in so they'll show you like a good joke or whatever or good, you know,
but it should be just
highlights.
enough. It should be
Yeah,
just enough to tantalize you. Like, what does happen? And wow, that looks cool.
Yeah.
yeah. And then you watch the film and it's like, oh, they literally gave out all the cool stuff already in the trailer. I didn't have to watch it. Yeah, I've noticed that problem a lot. The last few trailers that I felt were really good were like from Barbie, and I that was those were trailers that actually
And
made
they
me
were
want to
ones
watch
that
the
didn't
movie.
give too much away. Because with
Yeah,
Barbie, the main trailer that they were showing was the
Space Odyssey.
2001
Yeah,
Space Odyssey with the giant Barbie.
yeah. And I was like, well, this is perfect. Because yeah, it is that way in
Hmm.
the film, but it works perfectly as a trailer, and it doesn't give away the whole movie.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, I don't know. There's a lost art to trailers, I think, and they just give everything away. But it
Hmm.
has always kind of been a problem where promotional material just like we just want to get butts and seats. We don't really care about whether we spoil anything.
And I feel like that was the thought process behind a lot of the promotional stuff we're going to be talking about. They
Yeah,
gave a lot of stuff away, and it just felt like I know it wasn't the entire movie, but because we're talking about three different things, but I thought between the three, we watched a whole lot of the movie.
Mm.
I feel like at least for me, with this Operation Wonderland, I feel like the Mad Tea Party is like one of the best parts of the Disney Alice, and that's where I was kind of like, wow, this is a lot. They're doing us a lot here. I
Hmm.
mean, they did cut out a little bit, but it's not like they essentially gave us the best parts of it.
Yeah.
I was like, well, okay.
Well, part of
Do
that too
you need
is
to see it?
well, the people aren't seeing it in Technicolor,
Yeah, that's
so
true.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, at that time it was a big deal to go see it in color.
sure.
Definitely. I mean, the other one we'll watch, Kathy makes a comment about that. Like, you won't be seeing it in the beautiful Technicolor.
Hmm.
Mm.
Which, speaking of Catherine, I love her in this too. She's very, I don't know, she's just very pretty and
He's very
um
poised.
yeah, just very elegant even, I would say.
I
Like,
liked how much she was involved with all the promotional stuff.
yeah.
You could tell she really liked being there.
Yeah, I love that they gave her a special costume for promotion with the
Hmm.
ruffle.
Yeah.
It's like she was a novelty, the little English girl.
Yeah, they kept referring her to her as that in more than one of these promotional things.
I feel like, okay, because I think that has partly to do with Walt's own choice of her, because he struggled a bit with, choosing an Alice. Like before settling on Catherine Beaumont, he was going to go with Margaret O'Brien, I think is her name.
Mm. Oh,
Yeah,
Oh,
you probably know her, right?
oh yeah,
yeah.
Tootie
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Beth.
And then he was going to go with, that didn't work out because her mom wanted more money. Um, yeah,
Oh, oh,
Margaret recalls actually hearing them yell at each other. But I don't know,
wow. Oh, now you're getting into the juicy stuff.
yeah.
And
Um, and then the girl
she
after
was,
that, yeah, Walt was like, okay, we're not going to Margaret. But what do you have to say?
oh, I'm just, oh, now I'm gonna lose it. Um, but she was so talented. Maybe that's where I was going. She was so talented. I hope she had an okay childhood, but she would have been so good. I'm glad that they went with like the British accent. Like it's very appropriate that
Hmm.
they got
Yeah,
her, but oh, Margaret would have killed that. Like she
Hmm.
probably killed anything else that she was in. And I say that as a positive, not a negative.
oh yeah, she was a scene stealer at the time.
Yeah.
I
And
mean, he was
yeah,
so thrown off when we watched Meet Me in St. Louis together by the antics of those kids, and probably especially by Tootie.
Oh,
But
she was great. I
but
loved her.
she wasn't a child actor where you're like, okay, the kid's acting, they're doing their best. No, it's like, no,
Yeah.
she sold what she was doing. And
She felt real.
oh yeah.
yeah,
And funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
yeah. So
so do you know if
I
she
I
had a
get the
nice
impression. I don't know anything about Margaret O'Brien, but I get the
okay.
impression that her mom was very,
A stage mom.
See,
yeah.
that's my question. Like, did she have a bad situation with that? It's like I felt so bad over Judy Garland and I hope that and I feel like Shirley Temple's mom was not like that. Like they actually had a good
Oh no, Shirley
relationship.
Temple's mom was probably the reason why Shirley Temple ended up so well after being in the child star industry.
Hmm.
Um,
Like they really seemed like yeah, it seemed like a
yeah.
good relationship and I just hope that Margaret didn't have to
If I remember correctly,
uh,
though, with Margaret O'Brien, part of the problem with the contract that Walt was offering was at that time Walt offered long-term contracts, so like which a lot of
oh
studios could do, but Margaret O'Brien's mother, if I remember correctly, she really didn't like how long he wanted to have her under contract for. And
sure.
I think she was probably right, because the way he treated his other child stars over the years, I really disagree with some of the things Walt chose to do.
So that whole Yell Fest or whatever may have been perfect blessing in disguise
Yeah, it
later
really
on.
probably was. I don't know if Margaret realizes that later, but like some child stars that Walt Disney signed on that I think got shafted. Bobby Driscoll, who
Oh,
Yeah.
I
we
couldn't
talked about
watch
later.
that. I couldn't watch that
Yeah,
short with him without thinking about
Yeah.
the
yeah,
there's like a pall over.
Hmm. I felt
yeah.
the
It's
same way.
depressing knowing what happens to him, but also knowing that Walt, like, he had him under contract, refused to give him roles
Oh,
besides like
really?
that. Yeah, he's. I guess as he got older, he looked different than Walt thought he was going to look, and he didn't want to cast him in anything.
Well, I remember reading that he had acne. So
Yeah,
there may have been an issue with that, but I saw like a picture of him with his wife. He was a good-looking dude.
yeah.
It's
So
not like you know, yeah.
it's like, yeah. Um, or the other one, I really, Darlene from Mickey Mouse Club, I feel was really shafted over for Annette. Um,
Oh.
do you
I don't
guys
think
know
I know
about
who
that?
Darlene
This might be
is.
a tangent.
Yeah. I wonder why.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody knows.
Annette, hot take, she wasn't that talented as much as Darlene was, and she couldn't sing.
Oh, really?
Walt actually, her singing voice is fake. Walt had to develop a way of having her sing something two times and then taking those two takes and putting them together to make her voice sound better. He
What the
did like,
heck?
yeah,
Okay, so you know
voice,
what? I've
yeah.
only seen a little bit of Mickey Mouse Club, but I know Annette Funicello. I know I want to think of I like to think of her as Annette Funicello anyway. Um, but why did he just like her face better? What's who? Because
Probably, but everyone kind of did, I guess, which I don't get because she's a good dancer and she can actish. So personally, I think her acting is more bland. It's just kind of, I'm here and I'm nice. Um,
Now I'm curious to go back and rewatch some of the
yeah,
stuff that I watched of her years ago.
yeah. Darlene, the triple threat. She can act, she could sing, she could dance, everything. And
I'm looking her up now.
yeah, she was supposed, when the Mickey Mouse Club ended, Annette went on to do, like movies, the Disney movies. And Darlene was also supposed to start in a movie. I forget which one. I think it might have been the Oz movie, actually, or something. Because at the time, Walt thought he was going to do an Oz movie with the Mickey Mouse Club in it, and Darlene was going to be Dorothy.
Hmm.
And then she did like a tour, and then he just decided to do nothing with her.
Is this
Um,
like a
but
s- is this a case of her energy not melding with his? Because I'm looking at her and she's beautiful and from what you're saying, very talented.
Yeah. I think for some reason, I know later some people did criticize her for having a bad attitude, but from what I could tell, that developed later during the Mickey Mouse Club reunions when I think she kind of had a reason to have a bad attitude. um,
Why is she
as
so
far as I,
upset?
yeah, as far as I know, like she had kind of had a reason to be salty. Um, but anyway, because Walt like was like, actually, never mind. I'm not going to put her in any movies. However, I'm not going to release her from her contract because essentially he wanted Annette to succeed. He didn't want any competition for Annette.
That is so mean.
It is. It's awful. And the only thing she did was she let her do records, and that's it. But nothing like super talented. It was like, those like books where you listen to the record and you read along, like those kind of read along books for Disney movies. And I think she
Hmm.
did let her do one album, and the songs are kind of eh. And he had her under contract for a really long time. But by the time that she was out of it, it's like, Darlene who,
Mm.
Anyway, my point being, Margaret's mom was probably right on the money in not trusting him to treat her daughter well. And I say that with love for Walt. I don't think he saw the child stars as people.
I don't think a
Um,
lot of people
Oh,
back then
the
saw little kids
yeah,
as people.
oh, the irony. Oh, the irony. If
yeah,
anyone should be seeing them as people.
I
Yeah.
know.
By the
Yeah.
way, dear listeners, Darlene is still alive. She's 83. So if anybody wants to send her flowers and tell her how great she was,
She was in a bit of trouble there. She got caught for like petty larceny or something. But
I feel
again,
like we talked about this. Did we talk about this one time?
I
I
don't
feel like I
know.
remember it like a former Disney child star who got arrested for something.
I think it's happened more than once.
Oh
Um,
no.
but I can't remember anyone, but I might have brought it up before because it's an issue close to my heart. But anyway, Catherine was treated very well. So after Margaret O'Brien fell through, which, good for her, he tried, what's her name? Luana Patton, the little girl in
Luann
So Dear to
Patton,
My
I
Heart, Song
think.
of the South.
Yeah, I know
What
what
was
you're
her name?
talking about. I think it
Yeah,
was Luann Patton.
yeah, and I'm
Luana Patton.
Luana, yeah. I don't think she can care. I don't think she could have done it, to be honest. And then he came across Catherine Beaumont, who was, I think she had just done something with Jimmy Durante, and she was very good in that film. She was a big character. She wasn't a big character, but she was in it enough. And when you watch this clips of her in that film, it's on YouTube. she actually has a part. So she starts off very, very British and putting on like a British accent, really accented. And then later, when she sees Jimmy's character again, she has an American twang in her voice instead. And then the next time, she has like a middle ground accent. And I think that it might have caught Walt's attention when he saw it. Of like, this is an English girl who can vary her voice, and it doesn't sound too British enough to alienate American audiences. And hopefully on the opposite end, maybe as well, it won't sound too American to English audiences, because the thing about Catherine's family is that she is British, she's English, but her parents traveled a lot, so she has kind of a transatlantic accent to it. She has such a unique voice because of the way she grew up, essentially.
Hmm.
Like, I know my English boyfriend, like apparently to him at least, and to people he knows, it sounds too American to be fully English. So I find that kind of fascinating. And personally, my own headcanon is that the Disney Alice is partly American, partly English. But anyway,
Hmm.
so I think she ended up pretty well. She got two big roles in animated films.
Hmm.
So after that, she didn't really have anything else to do, but she didn't really want to, as far as I could tell. She was kind of content with that,
Hmm.
and she became a teacher, which I would have died if Alice was my teacher. I would lose my mind. But anyway, and I think she's adorable in all these, but I particularly like this one in Operation Wonderland, where Walt's like, "What are you studying, Jabberwocky?" And she's like, "No, algebra." You know, even
And it's
worse.
almost as bad.
Yeah. But I think it's really kind of a clever reference to the original author. It was a mathematician.
Oh, that's
Um,
right.
yeah, it's funny. I don't know if they did. I assume they did it on purpose.
She's also still alive. She's 86.
Yeah, I've written to her. She's very
Oh,
nice.
bless you.
She answers her fan mail. If anyone hasn't, I would suggest to do it.
Cool.
Yeah, and she gives you an autograph as well, which a lot of celebrities do. Anyway, um, anything else about Operation Wonderland you want to talk about?
Well, I was going to say that I think my favorite part was when they showed the live action references. Because I
Oh
think I've
yeah,
said this before. I would love to see like all of that footage. Like if they could cut it into like roughly the movie, I think that would be so interesting. I think that's my favorite way out of any of these that we're going to be talking about that they promoted the movie was to show the live action actors portraying their animated characters like in full costume doing the lines. Especially Edwin. I love Edwin.
yeah. I like the live action reference for the Tea Party,
Hmm.
with Jerry Colonna as well, and Kathleen and Edwin.
I thought it was nice.
Yeah, and knowing that's the footage that accompanied the voice track in the film,
Hmm.
it's fun.
Yeah.
I wish we had like all the live action footage. To be honest, I don't believe them when they say they lost it all. I think they probably have more and they just have it on hold for future releases. They're always discovering things in that vault that is apparently very, very messy.
I would say it's also possible that they know it exists, but they don't know what reels it's on, and nobody wants to take the time to go look through it, which I can't exactly blame them for.
I mean, I do know that they are digitizing their archive, and
Hmm.
considering how much they have is a lot. But it's like, really? That's really all that you have, or these clips that were used in promotional materials, and that doorknob one that they had on as a special features behind the scenes thing on a DVD set. I'm just like, I don't know. It feels like you probably have more, though. Over time, I do kind of wonder if it might be a situation too where they deteriorated and maybe they don't want to
Oh
acknowledge
yeah,
that.
that's possible too. Film doesn't
Yeah.
last forever if it's not fully taken care of. Well, even if it is, it'll deteriorate.
Yeah, Disney's very like not transparent about that kind of thing, I think.
Mm.
So, yeah.
Well, I'm thinking we'll pause here. This we've talked a lot longer than I expected. We will be back next week, but until then, do you want to let people know where they can find you if they want more from you?
Well, I'm Jenna. I'm Phantomwise on YouTube and also love Gets a Fairy Tale on YouTube.
I'm Sarah North. I'm a watercolor artist, and my work is available on Redbubble under Turnip Wilson. And there are other fanciful things in there that would tie in well with what we talk about.
Okay. Well, we'll be back next time to talk about 1 hour in Wonderland.
Woo!
Thanks for listening to Wonderland Wednesday. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and follow my co-hosts as well. My Linktree and all of our links will be in the description below. If you want more of my content, all my podcasts are available on YouTube as well as most podcast platforms. If you enjoyed this show, check out one of the other podcasts or check out my Patreon for bonus and extended episodes you won't find anywhere else. We'll be back soon with another brand new episode, so thanks for listening and we'll see you next time.